it's 6 o'clock, and I'm just going to say we should probably get going. I want us to keep this to an hour. We're going to have other opportunities to do this. There's going to be opportunities for you to email questions in. There's going to be a forum this Sunday in our usual forum time at 10 o'clock. There's going to be another one of these next Thursday at 6, where we're going to really look at some questions that we've come in. Today and Sunday, I'm going to be doing the same presentation. I'll really give you some more in-depth about what's happening. I'm joined here by our wardens, Juan Meja, Monique Thomas, by several members of our vestry, Jim White, Eddie King, Art McDermott, Norwita Milburn, Hannah Earnshaw, Steve Williams, Christine Hartman, also from the Wardens Planning Task Force, Terry Knowles and Gloria Pitzer. And I think that's everyone right now. And there may be others who will be coming on board.
I'll keep checking, Mike.
Yeah, keep checking.
I see Dave Moreno. Okay, I just promoted him.
Great. And people are already, Linda is already asking questions. That's good. And Juan's here. Juan is here. Will Gatlin's here. And so what I was going to point out is I'm going to be doing a presentation for about 20 minutes. It's really going to go in depth on sort of expand on the video from yesterday and talk about the changes in the vision for the future. And then the rest of the time is your questions, and you can use that Q&A feature. And some of you have already found that. The presentation is also going to be available in Spanish. The presentation that I'm giving here will be available on the website in English and in Spanish. So, and huge thanks to Alfredo Ferregrino for his translation work with that. That's wonderful. I want to begin with prayer. And this is a prayer that we used regularly to begin our Wardens Planning Task Force meetings. And so God dwells in you.
And also in you.
Let us pray. God, we abandon ourselves into your hands. Do with us what you will. Whatever you may do, we thank you. We are ready for all. We accept all. Let only your will be done in us and in all your creatures. We wish no more than this, O God. Into your hands we commend our soul. We offer it to you with all the love of our heart, for we love you, God, and so need to give ourselves, to surrender ourselves into your hands without reserve and with boundless confidence, for you are our God. What you got and what the vestry approved on Tuesday night has been the result of a long process. It's been a result of conversations that started a long time ago. And through it all, what we have tried to hold at the center is that we're living in the hand of God and trusting in God's hand through this. And so what you're going to see now is the results of that faithfulness and that trust. I'm going to share my screen. I have a presentation. I'm just going to start here. Let's see if I can. There we go. I just want to start by talking about the present day, and that we are in a moment, and history gives us these moments. And some of this has been coming for a while, and some of this is being thrust upon us, and some of it has yet to be defined. We've known for a while that there are generational shifts that impact income and giving and church attendance. There are economic bubbles that are bursting and about to burst. The impact of climate change will create even more crises in the next decade, and an emerging moment of cultural reckoning around race and racism is happening. And we don't have to remind ourselves that we are in the middle of a pandemic that will likely stretch into 2021. Many of the changes that we thought were going to happen over 12 to 15 years may be happening closer to 12 to 15 months. History gives us moments like this for us to rediscover who we are and to show the world who we are. Now, moments like this are profoundly uncomfortable, and they challenge us to love each other deeply, to reclaim our core identity, and to remake ourselves to meet the challenges that we're facing. This is not a time for nibbling around the edges or downsizing to a smaller, less than version of what we have been. It is a time for regrouping and restructuring and focusing. That is the opportunity we are choosing to embrace so we can be ready to be a force for love in the years to come. We started this several years ago we asked ourselves, what are the core values that make All Saints All Saints? What is that, in Brian Robinson's words, special sauce? And we came up with the values of radical inclusion, courageous justice, joyful spirituality, and ethical stewardship. And that resonated deeply with the vestry, with the staff, and with all of you. And then we took those values and we fashioned them into a mission statement. We are an Episcopal church, walking with a revolutionary Jesus, loving without judgment, doing justice courageously, embracing life joyfully, reverently inviting all faiths and peoples into relationship for the healing and transformation of ourselves, our community, and the world. Now, we did this because we saw these changes coming and we knew we needed a foundational sense of who we are to adapt in the face of those changes. And when COVID made it clear that the task was going to be even bigger and more necessary, we asked the vestry, what assumptions did we need to make in planning? Now, the biggest of these was that we probably won't be gathering together as a whole church the way we are used to for at least the first half of 2021, if not longer. That's what the best of medical scientists are telling us. Others were that there were going to be economic challenges that would not only hit our congregation, but would invite us to be even more a source of hope and help to the most vulnerable among us. And then we also asked, what are the core functions, the most important purposes of All Saints Church? We wanted to make sure we started from that foundation. And the vestry said these four things: worship, community, learning, and action. And then we went to the staff. And throughout the month of June, we invited the staff to assemble in 5 groups, these 4 functions plus administration, because administration is the connective tissue that supports and holds it all together. And each group of staff gave its ideas about what needs to be held on to and what needs to change and ways we could do things differently. And all this time, we began meeting with this group called the Wardens Planning Task Force. And the Wardens Planning Task Force took all these ideas, the vestries, the staffs, what we had gained from our life together, all of our planning assumptions and these purposes, values, and mission, and began to design a draft staffing program and budget plan for 2021. One that would see us through a unique combination of challenges, the circumstances of COVID, and also be a bridge to a stronger and more sustainable future. Now, one of the big things that came from everyone is that we are not structured to do ministry effectively and creatively in today's world. This is All Saints Church's current organizational chart. It is actually a wonderful picture of faithfulness, and it represents the best thinking of 20th century management. It is also a picture of enthusiasm and a community that is incredibly challenged to focus, with an administration that has become more and more overtaxed, and as a survival skill has had to become more of a group that keeps plates spinning and sometimes even a gatekeeper than an empowerer of mission. It's a picture of church doing great things, but in silos without the kind of integration of work and life together that enables communities to flourish. In business terms, this is Sears Roebuck in an age when we need to be Google. Now this is where we're heading. It is a new structure for mission and ministry at All Saints Church. Now, wonderfully, in moving forward, we're actually going back to the beginning. Our faith began with a circle, the open table of Christ, where everyone is invited to come, where power is shared, and where the Holy Spirit breathes creative life through all. From prehistoric times, we are literally wired as human beings to gather in circles and share our lives with one another. Now, where the previous flowchart was wonderful and effective at establishing lines of authority and control, over the past decade, we have been relearning that circles encourage collaboration and creativity. So we are taking those 4 things that matter most to us: worship, community, learning, and action. And we are going to be gathering in those circles, and those circles are overlapping each other. And that's the life in the church we will be becoming. Circles of creativity overlapping with one another, mutual accountability, maximal creativity, everyone with a place at the table. Each one of these circles will have clergy and other staff who act as gatherers, coordinators, and empowerers of ministry. The circles, as you can see, will overlap, with learning leading into action, and action informing worship, and life as beloved community informing our learning, and so on. So just for a minute or so, I want to take a look at each one of these individually. First, liturgy and worship. Worship is the center of our life together. It is where all parts of our life meet and where we offer them to God. Our worship space, our liturgy, music, preaching, everything works together to draw us more deeply into the radical revolutionary life of Christ. Now, we already do this wonderfully. And our liturgy, our music, our preaching, our worship space can incarnate our values even more deeply. We are going to build on what we have, a wonderful tradition of worship at All Saints Church. And we will continue to learn to worship in new ways and with different cultural expressions and led by every generation. More and more have worship be less of a spectator sport and more of a creation of the entire community. Beloved community circle. When you take our core value of radical inclusion, what that really means is at the root, radical, all is one. At the root, all is one. Beloved community is about us being that big open table of All Saints Church, where whoever you are and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you are welcome to gather in Christ. In this time where we can't gather as a large group together in one place, we're going to take advantage of that opportunity and focus in meeting in small groups, masked, distant, and outdoors where possible, and online where not. Our music programs will continue to provide beautiful music for worship, and their main purpose for this COVID season is going to be pastoral, providing both community themselves and music that binds us all together and touches our hearts. We will be continuing the work we have started, planting and sustaining small groups that will be the primary way we will be gathering, loving, learning, and acting together through the length of this pandemic. The new congregational response team and community care teams will work with existing pastoral ministries across the church as we emphasize connecting people with each other and with new opportunities for ministry. Learning and spiritual growth across the lifespan circle. I'm excited about this one. Just as we are gathering together, we're also going to be learning and growing together. For the past several years, we have been intentionally trying to bring children and youth more into the mainstream of our life. This circle creates a structure for that. We will be establishing a learning and spiritual growth across the lifespan team that will include restructured staff for children and youth and people with educational and spiritual growth experience and expertise to design ways of learning and growing that cut across generations. So imagine sitting around the dinner table and the whole family of all ages being able to discuss the same thing that we've been learning at All Saints Church because we're all learning it in different ways. Imagine even more than already, because it's been happening already, youth leading us in prophetic action and older people among us being able to share the wisdom and experience they have cultivated to help generations to come while still growing themselves. That's what this circle is. Progressive faith into action. Now, All Saints is probably best known for the progressive, envelope-pushing theology that we have incubated and our commitment to prophetic action. And too often, we have not had a focused connection between the two. Too often, we have tried to do too many things and tried to do them by ourselves, and we have not had the impact we could have. This circle, connected with the others, is about taking that new theological narrative and translating it into focused action in the world. Action not just done by staff and a few others, but where everyone will have an opportunity to participate meaningfully and where we will work with community partners for greatest impact, embracing the call to do fewer things and to do them really well. And that's going to be something we're going to be hearing a lot of. Can we be more focused? Can we do fewer things and do them really well? Finally, administration. Administration and our physical plant and its maintenance is our connective tissue. And it's a huge challenge. It is an enormous piece of our budget, and it takes up a lot of staff resources. Because we have been both a staff-centered organization and a community that likes to do a huge number of things, as I said before, over the years, as a survival skill, our amazing administrative staff has become more plate spinners and gatekeepers than equippers of ministry. That's not their fault. That is what loyalty, hard work, and faithfulness has looked like, and they have done it incredibly well. We are basically running the way we did 20 or 30 years ago. And that's because it has been way too long since we stepped back and had some outside eyes help us take a look at our administrative processes and streamlined them for efficiency. Other churches our size and even larger are operating with much greater efficiency than we are, and we can learn from them. We can do that by making 2021 a transition time where we do holistic analysis of financial, communication, IT, and physical plant resources to be church more creatively and efficiently, freeing up staff time for more support of ministry. Now, our challenge is to move into this new model and do it in a way that is sustainable at $4 million annually and not $5 million. To restructure in a way that is sustainable both on a financial and human level, and also in a way that specifically responds to the present moment. There is no way to do this without eliminating some positions. So that's what's happening. And as we got into this process, we realized we also had to create some positions and also have some interim positions, as this budget is not only a path through COVID, but even more, it is a bridge to 2022 and the future. So I'm going to run through these next two slides as a pair, because the elimination of some positions will only make sense when you look at what has been created. Now, some of these are directly COVID related. When we will be unable to gather as a full church for worship, we won't need Sunday and weekly childcare staff. We also can't afford an associate organist, and we have had to make additional reductions in the music budget. I am working with Wei Chung Zhao and Jenny Tisi on how the existing funds in the budget will be allocated, including section leaders and accompanists during this time of COVID. Also COVID related for 2021, we are reducing the building and ground staff by the equivalent of 1.5 full-time positions. I'm working with Gloria Lopez and Veronica Flores, and with their input, I will decide how the personnel budget in that area will be allocated over our existing staff. I met with them this morning. You know them, they are so wonderful. As we come out of the pandemic, we will be reevaluating our needs in these areas because they're going to be different as we come back to campus. We're eliminating 2 full-time administrative assistant positions. One is currently vacant. The other is the administrative assistant for children, youth, and families, as a new support structure will cover those needs through the learning and spiritual growth across Lifespan Circle. The executive assistant to the rector, Maren Tompkins, told me several months ago that she will be retiring at the end of June 2021. That position will not be refilled. I will share the same support staff as everyone else. The senior associate for administration position is being eliminated. In a moment, you're going to see what will happen with those job responsibilities as a part of restructuring the administration area. We're eliminating the position of senior associate for CYF, adult education, and director of youth programming. Having one position in charge of all this for a 3,000 member congregation is impossible. And the salary package for that position is unsustainable. At the same time, we are also eliminating the part-time assistant youth minister position so we can create a new position of a full-time director of youth ministry. This is not the first time we've had it, but we haven't had this position in 4 years. I'm thrilled to announce that Nina Scherer, who has been our assistant youth minister, will be moving into that role in 2021. This will give us something structurally we haven't had in 4 years, a full-time director of youth ministry doing nothing but focusing on that, working in collaboration with children's ministry and adult formation in the learning and spiritual growth across the Lifespan Circle. As rector, I will personally be convening the Learning Across Lifespan team, part of which will design and coordinate adult formation. We'll be creating an interim position of Director of Finance and Administration. This will be someone with large church or nonprofit experience who can come in with outside eyes and help us work with continuing staff, our treasurer and finance committee, to restructure and streamline both our processes and staffing configurations for 2022 and beyond. We're also going to add an interim half-time director of networking who will focus on connecting people to one another and to small groups and ministries, and particularly to identifying and supporting volunteers. And I like what Alfredo calls us, not volunteers, but partners in ministry. Finally, we looked at our clergy staff and we realized it was not sufficient for the size of our congregation, that it does not represent the diversity we need to incarnate our values, and that we must answer the call for a renewed focus on racial justice. And because of that, we will be hiring a third associate rector to begin in July, who will eventually be responsible for the Progressive Faith into Action Circle for convening that and focus us on our racial justice work. Now, on an org chart and a budget, we can talk about eliminating and creating positions. And we all know that these are people. These are real people that we have worked and played and prayed and shared our lives with. Grace Chung, Christina Honchel, Jeremy Langell, Christina Ortega, and Marin Tompkins. They have given years and years of their lives to All Saints, and the mark they have left on this community and on us as people is indelible, and I am so deeply grateful for each one of them. Christina Honchel has been here 26 years and has been as faithful and hardworking an employee as I have ever known, making sure so many things in this complex place happen. Marin Tompkins has been here 20 years, and as we send her off into retirement, she takes a deep history of loving support of this church and keeping rectors in line with her. I can't tell you the number of times that she has helped me in my 4 years here. Jeremy Langell, for the past decade, has built a youth program and nurtured, challenged, and held space with a generation of youth. Christina Ortega has been here only 4 years, and her service to the children, youth, and families of this congregation have been considerable. And Grace Chung has only been here 1 year, and she has already become such a huge, joyful part of the All Saints family. Each one of these people means so much to us. This is incredibly hard for them, for the entire staff, and I know for all of you, for all of us. We are doing everything we can to care for them as they depart their employment here and help them transition to either retirement or their next ventures. And there is no way around the pain for them and for us. So please, please hold them and the whole staff in your prayers and reach out and tell them you love them. And we are looking forward to bringing some new, amazing people into this community that will become part of the All Saints family. And so we're forming a team of people to work on all the goodbyes and hellos because each one of these people is so important to us all. This change is a hard thing in the middle of so many other hard things. We will be providing many opportunities like this one to gather as best we can, to share our thoughts and feelings and be together as we move through this time of transition. And right now, many of these spaces are primarily adult spaces and might not feel welcoming or familiar to our youth. So with the leadership of some of our youth, we are forming a CYF continuity team that will be majority youth with adult support to create structures and spaces for support as we move forward together. I will be on this team as well. I have written a message to all our children, youth, and families that will be going out shortly. As you can see, this draft budget is more than $1 million less than fiscal year 2020. And you can also see from this chart what I was saying about administration. That contains all of buildings and grounds, communications, IT, property insurance and taxes, the annual audit, and a whole bunch of personnel. These are vital and important parts of our church, which is why we're going to spend 2021 working on this area to make it as efficient and effective as it can be. Now, a lot of this is hitting us all at once. And there's no way to make this shift without pain for everyone. We will grow into this model, and in so doing, it will evolve and get better as we get better at it. It will be hard to make the changes that we have to be made, especially in the midst of a program year, especially during a pandemic, but the alternative is worse. To drag out separation, to not achieve financial sustainability in 2021, and to delay getting on with the work we're dedicated and excited to take on. Finally, there's no getting over the loss that this entails, and we're doing all we can for those affected. There will be people who will be hurt, angry, and disappointed. I bet those feelings are in this room right now. Change never happens without that. We will have to grieve together as a congregation and love each other through it. And we need to remember what is not changing, the heart of what makes All Saints Church the community we love. Beautiful worship and music, sustaining relationships we hold dear, vibrant children's and youth ministry, stimulating education and spiritual growth, and opportunities for transformative justice. Finally, as we build that bridge to the future, this is how we're going to be better. We will be financially sustainable and prepared for growth. We'll be more deeply rooted in the theology of a revolutionary Jesus. We'll be more deeply connected in cooperative, just, and authentic relationships both within and outside the church. We will be more fully inclusive of children, youth, and families, and we will be focused on the work of our generation, racial justice. That's what I have for you. And this is not the end of a conversation. This is the beginning of a conversation. We have questions already coming in, things are in the chat, but right now I want to turn it over really briefly, because you've heard from me for 20 some odd minutes, to our wardens, Juan Meja, our senior warden, and Monique Thomas, our junior warden, to add some thoughts of their own.
Good evening. Thanks, Mike. It's an honor to be here as your senior warden with Monique Thomas, who's your junior warden, and many of the vestry members that are here tonight, and also members of the Warden Planning Task Force that are also here as the panelists. We're here to answer your questions. I first, before I get going with any comments, I just want to thank the members of the vestry and the members of the Wardens Planning Task Force for their hard work for over the last 5 months in making these tough but necessary decisions. The work began last year. Long before the COVID-19 pandemic, the vestry had agreed to initiate a comprehensive, frank, and prayerful process to align our church with the mission and values that we as a congregation adopted last year, including our commitment to ethical stewardship. The COVID-19 pandemic not only made worse already existing systemic and financial challenges, but it presented unique and dire threats to our immediate fiscal health. As Mike mentioned, for example, when we did a careful analysis and projected what our total income will be next year, we came to the conclusion that our total income was going to be reduced by $1.1 million. This year's budget, this year's operating budget, totals over $5 million. The fiscal year 2021 draft budget is projected to be $3.99 million, which is a significant 20% drop. So to address this perfect storm of economic uncertainty together with health and environmental instability, the vestry formed the Wardens Planning Task Force, which was comprised of vestry members, lay leaders, and 2 staff members. The task force was invested hundreds of hours over these last 5 months working with the rector to identify the primary purpose of All Saints, as Mike explained, based on our values and mission. What makes All Saints All Saints? And we also respectfully sought and worked, integrated the advice and the inventive solutions of our All Saints staff. So this Tuesday, on September 1st, the full vestry agreed by consensus to adopt the task force thoughtful and thorough recommendations, which will begin to unfold immediately and continue to evolve across the 2021 calendar year. The vestry believes the major changes to our organizational structure and staffing, as well as our work together in small groups, will leave us financially solvent and sustainable and prepared for future growth. It'll leave us more deeply rooted in our mission to follow a revolutionary Jesus. It'll leave us more deeply connected in cooperative, just, and authentic relationships within and outside of All Saints Church. It will also help us to be more fully inclusive of children, youth, and families, And lastly, it will keenly focus our work, the work of our generation, which is racial justice. So once again, I just want to thank the vestry, your vestry, the members of the task force, and I want to thank Mike Kinman for his leadership over these last 5 months. He's put in as many hours, say we put in 100 hours, he probably put 3 times as much hours in putting together this vision for All Saints and a way of leading us forward to a great future All Saints. So thank you very much, Mike. I'll turn it over at this point to Monique to say a few words, and then we will ask you, if you have questions, to please use the question and answer feature in the Zoom feature, so that Monique and I can go back and forth and read your questions, so that not only Mike and Monique and I, but the other members of the vestry can answer your questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Again, I'm Monique, Junior Warden, and I just want to echo Juan's sentiments in thanking Mike for leading this process, and to the Wardens Planning Task Force and the vestry. It's been several months of meeting and coming up with this budget, and it has not been an easy process. And so that's something that I want everyone to know. We have reached a point where we needed to make decisions many years ago. We were entering a learning journey where we were going to take a little bit more time, and then with COVID and the economy and everything that's happened now, we've really entered into the fierce urgency of now, as Dr. King would say, that this now is the time. This is going to be a really a journey for all of us as a community. It is a time when we need community more than anything, and it's very challenging with COVID, but finding new ways to support one another, including our congregants and our staff. We also need to lean into faith and into grace, because this is going to be very challenging times. But again, I just want to thank everyone, the Wardens Planning Task Force and the vestry and Mike and my co-warden, Juan, for this work.
And if you are a vestry member, I'm trying to find you on the attendees list to promote you. If I haven't promoted you yet, send me a text and I'll try to find you. So let's go to the questions right now. So a quick question: who was on the Wardens Planning Task Force? There was. I'll try to remember everybody.
I actually have a list. I have a
Great,
list.
go.
Yeah, I got it.
We should know it by heart by now.
I know, only a few people. So it was Juan Meja, well, Mike. Juan Meja is senior warden, myself as junior warden, Marianne Ahart, Thomas Diaz, Julianne Hines, Kimberli Hudson, Terry Knowles, Tony Jackson, Janet Carroll Norton, Gloria Pitzer, Brian Robinson, and Steve Williams. So there were 13 of us in total, including some vestry members and people all over who represent many different areas of All Saints.
Okay, I'm gonna start promoting some people that are on the task force or on the vestry. And Monique, if you could take a look for the next question, I'll focus on that.
Sure. Okay. So I'm going to read our, let's see, who was on the Wardens Task Force? Okay, we answered that. Do you have a chart that shows how existing staff will fit into these circles? That's a question by David Bostler.
And the answer to that is we're going to be putting that in graphic form. We have sort of lists of that. That's not in graphic form yet. That's a great question, and we're going to get that out to you as we sort of produce that information. So absolutely, we'll get that to you.
Okay, Monique, can you keep going? I'm still trying to find
Sure.
different vestry members here.
Okay, absolutely. So the next one is from Bert Vulries. When you talk about focusing on racial justice as the work of our generation, what precisely do you mean? What sorts of actions are you envisioning? Will All Saints organize differently to accomplish these actions? If so, how? How is this new priority reflected in the budget? What will be done, if anything, to further diversity of the staff? Are there costs associated with diversifying that are reflected in the budget? Finally, does the new organization budget reflect the steps to more intentionally provide people of color at All Saints parishioners power and voice at All Saints?
Okay. I mean, I'll do that. Bert, that's great. And those are the questions I would expect from you. And those are great questions. I'll try to answer them as quickly as I can. When we say this is the work of our generation, we precisely mean that. And we see this happening right now. Of our generation of the church. During my time here as rector, this is core work that we are going to be doing. We passed a racial justice resolution before I got here. You all claimed this. And when I came in, that's what we looked at and said, this is what we need to be about. Will we organize differently? What actions are we envisioning? First of all, we are bringing in this third associate rector to specifically focus our work on this. And so that's the way our budget reflects that. Another thing that is in the budget is something that is in the learning and spiritual growth across the lifespan circle that I'm really excited about. And it's something new that we're trying, and I'm just having some other conversations about today. It's called the Movement Architecture Project. And I don't want to get too deeply into this, and I want to talk because I want to have more questions. But we have a line item that is going to gather, first of all, this learning across lifespan team that is going to have both CYF and adult formation and lots of people who know about education and formation and spiritual growth. And then we're also going to take what I call practical theologians, people who are from across not just Christianity, but in different faiths, who know about education and who are progressively theological in their own areas. And they're going to work with us to identify and articulate a progressive theology about an issue. And we're going to start with dismantling white supremacy and becoming actively anti-racist. And as we develop that, then we're going to work with the Learning Across Lifespan Circle to include that, to infuse that in our learning. And then it is going to lead to action, to one action to start off with, that we take as a congregation, either internally or externally, that will reflect this. We're going to bring in someone that is an expert in building movements, who knows how to build effective movements, to work with us as a consultant and walk with us in this process. And at the end of it, we're going to be able to say, we have found a model for focus to, first of all, having a theological foundation for dismantling white supremacy, and that allows us to not just partner within Christianity, but partner with multiple faiths. An idea of how do we infuse that into the congregation at every developmental level, and how do we mobilize ourselves for action? And actually I was just talking to someone today who really thinks that we can also get funding for this. So I'm hoping that we can do that. We can create a model for other places of the church. So that's one piece that we're doing and this gets into work that Juliana Serrano has been doing for the last couple of years, really moving us more into a community organizing approach. So we can focus All Saints Church on specific things. What will be done, if anything, to further diversify the staff? I'm sort of limited to what I can say about that. And really sort of what I can say is I am incredibly aware that diversity in our staff is important in every way. And it's not just about optics. It's not even primarily about optics. It is about having a diversity of experience at the table. And so that's incredibly important. And so that's my commitment to that. And that's sort of, that's all I can say. Every job at All Saints Church is open to everyone to apply for. I mean, that's the, any job that's posted is open to anyone to apply for. So hope that answers your question, Bert. We can talk more about this. This won't be the last time definitely you hear about it. You're gonna be hearing a lot about this.
I want to just add to that too, Mike. And so, Bert, I've worked with you, Bert. We do have a racial justice advisory board, which is incredible and amazing, and came out of the work of the racial justice resolution that was passed in 2016. And so one of the reason why we have this board is that they're sort of taking this sort of upper level view of what we as a congregation can do to lean more heavily into what it means to racially be diverse. As a part of that, the Racial Justice Advisory Board has a working group that's part members of the board and part members of vestry. And so I'm hoping that through that, through this, with our new budget and our learning towards action movement and circle, that we can work more collaboratively to make sure that we don't have those gaps, right? In terms of what is it that we need, what is it that we're not seeing in terms of diversity for All Saints and in our community.
Okay, I have I'm going to read a question that it's actually two questions, and They're kind of similar. I'm going to read. First one is, have any of the current staff, particularly those who are being eliminated, been or being considered for any of the new positions? And tied to that is the question before that, the elimination of Jeremy's position and yet moving Nina into a similar position feels like cutting the senior person in favor of the less expensive junior person. My thing just moved. Which All Saints fought against with the hotel industry in Pasadena. Why not move Jeremy into the new director of youth ministry position? Was it offered to him? Before Mike answers that, I want to say that something that people might not know, I didn't know this before I joined the vestry, is that the vestry, our role in the vestry is to set the budget. And we're not involved in personnel matters or those types of decisions. That's solely the purview of the rector. That is the rector's job. We'll create a position, and it's up to the rector to decide who will fill that position. So, Mike, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, I will. And just to sort of go off of what you said, Juan, the vestry's job is to, these were two separate things. There was the elimination of two positions and the creation of a new one. And there's a separate thing of who gets hired for that position. The Warden's Planning Task Force and the vestry, under my leadership, proposed and accepted the elimination of those two positions and the creation of the other one. Then it became my decision to decide, who do I hire for that? I'm the one, as part of my responsibility, to decide who the best people are to resource the mission that we have chosen. And so that this isn't sort of like, well, I forget the language of it, that we sort of tried to, hire the less expensive person. We actually created a new position with its own salary that anyone could have been invited into. Here's the thing, I can't talk about why I chose one person over another for a position. That's just not fair to them or to anybody on staff to have that conversation either publicly or privately. It was my responsibility to make that choice. That's what you called me to do, is to make choices like that. I made the choice that I believed was best for not just the present and the future, but the future of the church. And I can't comment about it more than that, because it wouldn't be fair to them, and it wouldn't be fair to anybody on staff. And I understand that answer is probably incredibly unsatisfying. And I can't talk about it any more than that.
Okay. Next question. Mike, thank you for such a skilled presentation of the amazing work done by the Warden's Planning Task Force and vestry. I'm grateful for the hard work and deep discernment. I'm excited about the new organizational model, and I love the circles. Questions. Will the departing staff be with us through December 31st? Will the new positions be filled in the 2021 calendar year? Will you consider meeting with ministry leaders at the appropriate time to help people understand where they fit into the new model, which administrative assistant, staff contact they will work with, and any other expectations?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. And I can also say, I forgot to answer the other question that was there, and I don't want to miss that one. Are any of the current staff, particularly those whose positions are being eliminated, been or are being considered for any of the new positions? And the answer to that is sort of no, by the nature of the positions. The interim director of finance and administration, by definition, we're looking for someone with outside eyes for that. And so we can't bring someone from inside the system for that. And the director of youth ministry, I've already made that hire, and I'm thrilled with that hire. Nina is amazing. And the interim, the director of networking, that probably needs to be someone from within this community, but probably not existing staff. Now for Jane's question, first of all the staff, this is something we guaranteed at the beginning of the pandemic, is everyone who was expecting income from All Saints Church in 2020, we were guaranteeing that income. And that is to the most part-time worker, because we knew this pandemic was going to hit people hard. And so, yes, everyone is going to still be on the payroll and be with us through December 31st. And I want to say, this is so hard. We had a trade-off to make with this. We were telling people in early September 2nd, that their job was going away in 4 months. And then to have to continue to come to work, even when we're not actually coming to work, and function in this. That's hugely hard. So I'm going to work individually with each staff member to really say what is reasonable and works for you. And we're going to stand by that this salary is guaranteed for people. We're going to support our people all the way through 2020. Will the new positions be filled in calendar 2021? I hope to have most of them filled by 2021. The exception being the associate rector. We want to have that filled. That budget for that starts on July 1st. And then will you consider meeting with ministry leaders? Absolutely. I would love to meet with ministry leaders. And I won't be the only one meeting with ministry leaders. We're going to be meeting a lot together. Changing into this new structure is not going to be like flipping a light switch. This is going to be something that we are going to be growing and transitioning into. And we're going to learn about it as we do it. And part of the conversation I've had with staff is we're actually going to be designing this while we do it. This is a structure that is supposed to maximize creativity. And so you all, as we do this, are going to have a part of designing how it works.
Mike, I have a question from David. He is asking, and I'm going to throw this to the chair of the Finance Committee, Kimberli Hudson, and maybe Terry Knowles, who is in charge of giving. What is the current financial income level? Is it in line with the planned structural change at a $4 million rate?
It is. And Terry, I'll let you answer some of this too. We have, over the past several years, experienced a drop in giving, as most churches have. Ours has been less than most churches, actually, from the data that I've seen. And so the changes that we've made is not just because of COVID. It's because we needed to make structural changes for the long-term health of our church and our parish. And so Terry, do you want to take on the giving part of that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Pledge income, which most recent peak was $3.9 million in 2016, 17, and 18, dropped precipitously in 19, and we are projecting again for it to drop this year. The trend has been downward. Joyfully, we have many, many new young families at All Saints Church, but their income levels are different and their giving capacity is different. So the trend has been downward. I'm hoping that it sort of flattens in 2021 and that it grows from there. That is certainly the way we will proceed. I can tell you that we budgeted about $4,086,000 in contributed income for 2020. And several weeks ago, about 6 weeks ago, we did a year-end projection, taking all the information that we had to see where we think the year might end in respect to contributions. And that number is $3.9 million. So we're down a couple $100,000. So that's just about right to go forward. We wouldn't want to expect more than that for 2021. We will strive for more than that and be very happy and grateful if it goes higher than that. But that's sort of the rationale behind the numbers. I hope that's helpful.
Well, and the one area that All Saints tends to be conservative is financially, because we want to be good stewards with what people give and how we can actually be a part of the community at large.
David had another question, Mike. He says it's not clear how these circles will work. Could you give a few minutes about that in terms of how you envision it?
Right, and we've actually already started this. Before we went into COVID land, we started actually gathering in something we called the circle, and it was essentially a department heads meeting. And what we started doing is really looking at, are there ways as staff that we could collaborate and connect creatively? And I actually floated this idea, this structural idea there. And a lot of it is that we're going to, and this will make more sense when we get the thing that you asked for, which is sort of where are the staff in this, and it will also say, you know, where do parishioners fit in? And this is something that I saw a question from Gary Hall about, is where do you all fit in with this? And we're going to be creating new structures within these where you all are invited into the work. We're going to have, like I said, this learning across lifespan team, where we're going to have an adult formation team of people in the congregation. We're going to have a worship team of people in the congregation of different ages to really help us examine our worship life. Melissa Hayes and I have been talking about this for a long time. We're going to have new ways for people to be involved. And part of it is the circles themselves are containers, and they're containers for collaboration and creativity. And as I've gotten this question also from staff, because they're noticeably, like, of course, they're concerned about this. This is their life and their job. Part of my answer is, well, how is this going to work? Well, we're going to design that together. It's the idea of, instead of me saying, well, this is exactly how it's going to work, it's a process of gathering, letting loose the creativity of congregation and staff and seeing what happens and making sure that we have overlap between worship and learning and community and action, and they're all feeding into each other. And then the vestry becomes this really great body where all that comes to one table, and we get to have really amazing conversations about the mission and ministry direction of the church. So that's going to be something we're going to figure out together. And what I'll also say is, this is something that is, this is where management is headed. As I said, we need it to be more like Google than like Sears and Roebuck. This is really what people are finding brings the best out of your people. And in our case, that's not just staff, that's all of us.
Thank you. I'm actually going to combine two questions because they're kind of similar. There's one from an anonymous attendee that says, when we say that we will become more focused, does that mean we're eliminating the existing peace and justice ministries, from climate change to Middle East ministries? All of those go away? What place will those things have in the people invested in the future? And I feel like that's related to Gary Hall's question of how will this reorganization call on parishioners to collaborate in ministry with staff? And I'll jump in first, Mike, before you.
You go, because you've been working on this with P&J.
Yes. So I think that this really opens an opportunity for us to work more collaboratively and to have a bigger impact. Part of what we do at All Saints, and this is a wonderful thing, it's like if something makes your heart beat faster, we start a ministry. And sometimes there's overlap in existing ministries. Sometimes there are community organizations that are already sort of doing that work. And so what this allows us to do is better collaborate with existing, not only, ministries and groups already existing at All Saints, but also existing community organizations that are already in Pasadena and have a greater impact. One of the things that I've noticed this year, we had decided that voting, 100% voting, was going to be a big priority. And we really haven't had the bandwidth. I think, it didn't help that we're virtual right now, to really focus and work towards that. And in order for us, we're moving towards this sort of learning into action and community organizing model. For us to have any sort of deep impact and really make an impact, we have to be able to focus our work. So I think that this model definitely will give us an opportunity to work more closely for staff and parishioners to work closely together and with the community, and also will engage more people from the community to enter into this work. The other thing is, people sometimes wonder, well, there's so many things going on, how do I even get started? And they're sort of managed and run in these different spaces, and we're kind of siloed. And this really sort of funnels that down and gives us some focus to give us greater impact and more opportunity for people to meaningfully engage in the work.
Yeah. And so I to sort of build on what you said and maybe even repeat what you said really quickly, are existing ministries going to have to shut down and disappear? Absolutely not. No. We have people interested in gun violence prevention. That's fantastic. Actually, the example I always use is the Amazon rainforest ministry, because we don't have one. There's a group of people, like, if you want to start and you want to like work on saving the Amazon rainforest, and that's something you want to do, absolutely do it. Do it as part of All Saints Church. Gather folks in this community, gather folks out of this community. There's a difference between what we do as members and small groups within All Saints Church and where we focus our entire institutional energy. That's what we mean when we say focus. We don't mean, no, we're only, we're nothing else is allowed. No, we don't mean that. We mean there's any number of things that we can do as individuals and as groups of people. That's limitless. If we want to be effective as an institution, we are going to focus as a whole community on only a few things. And we're going to do that in partnership with others to maximize our impact. And we're going to recognize that a key part of all of this is our own spiritual growth. And so, we don't just do these things to do them. We do these things because it changes us and we grow closer to God and each other.
It's off. Let's see, we have another question. And I want to remind everybody, that you can send me an email if you've got comments, questions, or concerns. I just put my email in the chat. And we're going to have another town hall on Sunday at 10 o'clock during the Rector's Forum. And I think there's going to be another one a week from tonight.
Yes, yes, there is.
So we want to be able to try to answer as many questions. There's a lot of questions in the Q&A, and we're trying to focus mostly tonight on the draft budget. And I know that you have other concerns and questions, so shoot us an email and we'll try to answer those. The question is, this one's about worship. The question is, I've always thought worship was the #1 purpose of a church from the early Christians onward, yet only 13% of the budget is dedicated to worship. So Mike, would you like to answer that? Or
yeah, and
sure.
I can answer that for this particular year of 2021, is that so many of our worship expenses are about gathering together physically in one place. And this year we're probably, looking at 2021, because we're such a large church. If we were a church of 30 people with a big church, we'd be having a different conversation. Because when All Saints gathers, we're 400 people in the room, 300 people, 500 people in the room. And one of the things we love to do most is sing. It's really hard. Someone asked the question, well, can't we just do something outside and have people register to do that? And people have brought that up. And it just doesn't feel like that's part of our value of radical inclusion, of saying, well, some people can come to church, but if you miss the sign up, you can't come. So, we're trying to err towards, our values there. But part of the reason that the worship budget for 2021 is so low is because we're doing worship largely online because of COVID. And so that percentage will go up in future years as we gather back together.
Okay, our next question. How have you prepared to address the grief and sense of loss that will certainly happen in the congregation with the loss of staff?
And this was a brilliant idea by Nancy Necker, who is also working on this, is we realize this is a huge transition for this congregation. And so we have reconstituted something that happened when Ed left and I came, which is called the Transition Life Committee. There were 4 versions of it. Really quickly, the first was personnel transition that worked on separation packages. Severance is going to work on care of continuing staff and care for staff as they leave. There's a second that Terry Knowles headed up that was about communications, and it's why we're having this town hall meeting right now. And then Nancy and some other people, and we're building a team still on this, is really working on congregational care. And how do we create opportunities and really do what you're talking about there, Jerry, because there is grief. And this is a terrible time to grieve, because we're all grieving so much right now, and we can't do what we want to do when we grieve, which is like physically hold on to each other. So we've got people working on that. If that's something you'd like to work on and help with, we'd love your help. We're recognizing that youth are going through this in a very specific and particular way, in addition to a lot of other disruption and grief, which is why we're doing the CYF continuity team that is specifically, and it's going to be led by youth. So we really, this won't be my idea as an adult about what youth need. It will be youth saying to youth, this is what we need. And we're going to help the youth provide that for each other. And then we're going to provide it when it's appropriate and when we're asked. So yeah, and then there's a 4th group that I know Kimberli Hudson is going to be working on with others. That's about the hellos and goodbyes, or the goodbyes and hellos. We hope we have the opportunity to say, everyone who's leaving, we're going to offer just a wonderful goodbye to, because God knows they've deserved it, and we need to do it. And we need to recognize that some may decide they don't want that, and that's got to be their decision. And we're going to welcome some really amazing new people, and we're going to say hi to them really well and introduce them to a really fabulous All Saints community. So yeah, we have structures for that. And if you want to help with any of that, any of you, just let me know.
We only have about a couple more minutes. I think this will probably be our last question, but again, join us on Sunday, join us next Thursday.
Yeah, and those will be a lot more time for questions.
Right.
And also, and send us an email too in the meantime.
Right.
If your question wasn't answered, please send an email.
Right. My email, and I'll put this in the chat, is mkinman@allsaints-pas.org. Typing it right now.
And mine's already in the chat.
And,
so let me go.
Yeah. So yeah, so go ahead and send any questions. Send it to that email. We're going to collate them, and we're going to spend the next town hall meetings really dealing with those questions.
So Grace has a question. Given all the cutbacks, is the 4th clergy person really necessary? what would the job description of such a person be? I'll just want to start with that real quickly, then maybe Mike, you could finish it up. But I think that, you know, we have 3 clergy people, and then Susan Russell, who's works part-time, half-time,
40%.
because of an arrangement with the diocese. We have a congregation of over 3,000 people. We have not been at the level we should be for a church this size since Mike got here. We have not replaced, all you remember, John Depp House. That position was never filled. Also, I think what we heard from the task force, what we heard from the vestry, what we heard from the congregation is that we really would like to see more diversity in our clergy. And that's going to be probably one of the goals of a national search that will be done by the search committee. So, Mike, I don't know, we want to finish
you have it, and then the additional thing is, like, this position is going to focus us. Not this person is going to focus. This person is going to focus us on our work of racial justice.
Yes.
And so that's, you know, and it's going to do that from standing at the table, from standing in the pulpit. We're a church, and we ordain people to gather us in community. Doesn't mean they're the only people who can gather us in community, but we ordain people to gather us in community around the table. And if this is going to be a focus and a key central part of our life together, then we felt that this is something that we need to have an additional person who can stand at the table and gather us around.
Well, it's 7:01. I want to thank everyone who joined us. I want to thank the members of the vestry and the task force who joined us. And thank you, Mike and Monique, for this town hall. Again, join us on Sunday. Join us next week. Send us your emails. Thank you. Keep us in prayer. Keep the staff in prayer, especially those whose positions have been eliminated.
Yeah, thank you. And this is, Monique, you want to say anything?
Yeah, just again, keep us all in prayer. And I just want to reiterate, this was not something that was taken lightly, particularly the eliminations of positions. We understood that the fiscal implications, but how that affects real people's lives, people that we know and love. And so this was a very hard journey, and it's going to continue to be hard. I appreciated the question about grief, because we all will be facing it in some way, and it builds on the grief that we're already feeling in these times, right? So I just, you know, please keep us in prayer. Pray for yourselves. Find community where you can. It's important to talk about these things and sort of process, and please reach out to us. We put our emails in there. I'm willing to talk to someone by phone, by Zoom, by, you know, just however that is, so that we can connect and have conversation.
And I'll just say ditto to that. Thanks to all the vestry. Thanks to the Wardens Planning Task Force. Something that I would really love us all to think about this weekend, because we're a missionary people, is it's going to be 111 degrees this weekend. And there's people in our community who don't have homes, and there's people in our community who maybe don't have air conditioning or have like a cruddy window unit or something, and so we check in with each other. If you know people who maybe don't have central air or are really vulnerable to the heat, check in with them. Make sure people have enough water. It is going to be dangerously hot this weekend. So this is a great example of how we can care for each other as a community. And then the other thing is as you learn from each other that someone is sick or someone has died or something has happened, reach out to them and also let us know. One of the challenges of this time together, when we're not together every Sunday, is we miss stuff, and someone can die and maybe we don't find out for a week or two. So please, first reach out to others yourselves, and then make sure that we know. And you can always, you know, mail pastoral care, mail info at All Saints, email me. The most important thing is that we're the church and we do this together. And so just keep praying, just keep loving, just keep reaching out, because that's what we're best at. So love you all. See you Sunday. See you next Thursday. And we're going to be seeing each other a lot, and love you a lot. Bye.
Thank you.